Okay, so we are now on module 6, module 5 pala, referring to a percentage tax. And we have to know the learning objectives of this topic is to discuss the nature and concept of percentage tax, distinguish percentage tax from value-added tax, and compute percentage tax due, no? So, anything that is not subject to value-added tax are now subject to percentage tax. So, it's a business tax imposed on person, entities, or transactions specified by Section 116 to 127 of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997, known as the Tax Code, as amended or required under special laws. A quarterly percentage tax under this section, we have to use the BIR Form 2551Q, or quarterly percentage tax return. Who are required to file? Person referred to individuals or non-individuals, which includes but not limited to state, trust, partnership, or corporation. These persons who are not VAT registered, who sell goods and properties and services, whose annual gross sales and or receipts do not exceed 3 million and are exempt from value-added tax under Section 109 of the National Internal Revenue Code, as amended in Republic Act 10963. Who are required to file? A person who lives in residential units where the monthly rental per unit exceed 15,000, but the aggregate of such rental of the lessor during the year does not exceed 3 million. So these are the one who will file also. A person engaged in the following industry and transaction. We have cars for rent, hire driven by the lessee, transportation contractors, including person who transport passengers for hire, or other domestic carriers by land for the transport of passenger, except owners of bangkas and owners of animal drawn through railway vehicle and keepers and garages. No? So we will be dealing with jeep, taxis, buses, tricycles. They are subject to what we call a percentage tax. An international or air shipping carriers doing business in the Philippines on their gross receipts derived from transport of cargo from the Philippines other than to another country. So the airlines, no? And then the franchise grantees of radio, television broadcasting companies whose annual gross receipts for the preceding year do not exceed 10 million and did not opt to registered as VAT taxpayer, and a gas and water utilities also. The overseas dispatch message or conversation transmitted from the Philippines by telephone, telegraph, telewriter exchange, wireless, and other communication equipment services, except those transmitted by the Philippine government or any of its political subdivision or instrumentalities, diplomatic services, public international organization, or any agencies based in the Philippines enjoying privileges, exemption, and immunities which the Philippine government is committed to recognize pursuant to international agreement, and news services for messages which deal exclusively for the collection of news items or dissemination of news items through public press, radio or television broadcasting, or wide news sticker service furnishing a general news services similar to that of the public press. Then we have the banks or non-bank financial intermediaries performing quasi-banking function. Other non-bank financial intermediaries, including the pawn shop, are clarified under the Revenue Regulation number 10-2004. A person, company, corporation, except purely cooperative companies or association doing life insurance business in the Philippines. And a fire, marine, miscellaneous agents of foreign insurance companies, a proprietor, lessee, operator of cockpits, coverage nights or day clubs, boxing exhibition, professional basketball games, highlight, race tracks, including videoke bars, karaoke at television, karaoke boxes, and music lounges, are under the Memorandum Circular number 18/2010. The winnings and dividends on horse races. So those are all that are subject to a percentage tax. Who will file and pay? Documentary requirements are the BIR Form 2551Q for a quarterly percentage tax return, duly issued certificate of creditable tax withheld at source, BIR Form 2307, duly approved tax debit memo, authorization letter if filed by an authorized representative, copy of certificate of registration issued by Cooperative Development Authority for cooperatives, and from National Electrification Administration for electric cooperatives. For manual filing, you may download the revised BIR Form 2551Q to file format under the BIR Forms percentage tax return section of BIR website. Properly fill up this form in certificate copies. We have to proceed on authorized agent bank located within the territorial jurisdiction of Revenue District Officer or RDO, where the taxpayer is registered and present the duly accomplished BIR Form 2551Q and other requirements. If paying manually, present the aforementioned documents together with BIR prescribed deposit slips and payment for the representative in AAB. A quarterly percentage tax should be paid at the time the return is filed by the taxpayer. In places where there are no AAB or duly accomplished BIR form, together with the required attachments and payment, shall be filed with the revenue collection officers through mobile revenue collection officer system, facility, or duly authorized treasurer of the city or municipality where business or principal place of business where taxpayer is registered, who will issue an electronic revenue official receipts. Receive copy of BIR 2551Q duly validated stamp received by the AAB RCO authorized city of the municipal treasurer. A manual filers who want to pay online can pay through GCash, Land Bank, LinksBiz, ATM, BankNet, DBB Tax Online, Master Credit Card, and a debit card. So for EFPS filing or payment, use the existing enhanced BIR Form 25Q and the EFPS system, which contains all the alphanumeric tax code enumerated in the said form in filing the return. The taxable amount to be indicated in the quarterly percentage shall be the total gross receipts for the quarter. In case percentage tax for the first and second and third months of the quarter had been paid, payments made are to be reflected in the BIR Form 2551Q in items 20A, creditable percentage tax withheld with BIR. After e-filing, proceed to online payment by clicking the proceeds of the payment button and pay the quarterly percentage tax due. The proceeds to AAB located within the territorial jurisdictions of the RDO where the taxpayer is registered and present the duly accomplished BIR 2551Q, another requirement. If there is payment that will be done manually, present the aforementioned documents together the BIR form prescribed deposit slip and payment to the respective AAB. The percentage tax shall be paid at the time of return is filed by the taxpayer. Filers who wants to pay online can pay through GCash, Land Bank, ADP portal, and so on. Note, no payment return shall return filed late will resort on imposition by the RDO on penalties which shall be paid at the concerned AAB. When to file, pay within 25 days after the end of each taxable quarter. The percentage tax for transactions involving shares of stocks under Section 127 of the Tax Code, the BIR Form 2552, percentage tax return for transaction involving shares of stock listed and traded through the local stock exchange or through initial and secondary public offering. Who are required to file? Every stockbroker who effected a sale, a barter, exchange of shares of stocks listed and traded through local stock exchange other than the sale by a dealer in a security which tax shall be paid by the seller or transferor. A corporate issuer engaged in the sale, exchange, or other disposition to the initial public offering of the shares of stock is closely held corporation. Stockbroker who effected a sale, exchange, or other disposition through secondary public offerings of shares of stock is closely held corporation. So this is how to file. There are documentary requirements. You have to use the form 2552. You have to have the certificate of creditable tax withheld returns at source, the proof of exemption for transaction not subject to tax, duly approved tax debit memo, amended return proof of payment and return previously filed, authorization letter if you are going to use authorized representative. For tax on sale of shares of stocks, you have to file it within 5 banking days from the date of collection. For tax or sale sold or exchange through primary offerings within 30 days from the date of listing in the LSE. For tax on shares of stock sold or exchanged through secondary public offerings within 5 banking days from the date of collection. Aside from BIR Form 2552, the stockbroker or corporate issuer is also required to submit a true and complete return to the Secretary of Stock Exchange to which he is a member. The said return shall contain a declaration of all transactions effected through him during the preceding week and of taxes collected by him in return turned over to the BIR. So we now go to the percentage tax rates based on the transaction. So for sale, barter, exchange, and other disposition of shares of stocks, or other than the sale of dealer of the securities, we have to base it on the gross selling price or gross value in money. And the rate is, say, 6/10 of 1%. So that is the rate for that. For sale, barter, or exchange of other disposition through initial public offering or IPO, And secondary offering, for IPO, we have 4%. And for secondary, you have 2%. Other offering sellers that may be posted is 1%. So, the gross selling price value proportion to disposed shares of total outstanding shares after listing in the stock exchange. So, if it is 25%, the disposition, 4%. If it is over than 25 is 2%. If it is 30 over, it is 1%. So that is the rate of tax to be computed on the gross value or the gross selling price of a stocks. For non-VAT registered person under Section 109, you have to base on gross receipts or gross sales, which is 3%. For domestic carriers and keepers of garage, we have to base again to gross receipts at 3%. For international shipping carriers doing business in the Philippines, the gross receipts on transport or cargo from the Philippines to the foreign country, we have 3%. For franchise grantees, gas and water utilities is 3%. Radio and television transbroadcasting, we have gross receipts again 3%. For overseas dispatch or message conversation, which is based on the amount paid for the service, which is 10%. For overseas dispatch message, again, amount paid of service is also 10%. Bank and non-bank, if financial intermediaries performing quasi-banking functions, this is based on the maturity. So, 5 years is 5%. If maturity is more than 5 years, is 1%. If dividends of an equity shares, net income of subsidiary is 0. The royalties, rentals, and property is 7%. The net trading gains within the taxable year of foreign currency and securities, derivatives, and other similar financial instruments are 7%. So, the other non-bank financial intermediaries, for interest, commission, discounts, and all other items treated as gross income, it is 5%. Interest on commission discounts from lending activities as well as income from financial leasing on the basis of remaining maturities of instruments from which receipts are derived. If mature in 5 years is 5. If mature in more than 5 years is 1%. So, life insurance companies, agents, except purely cooperative companies, the total premium is the premium collected is the base, which is computed by 2%. Agents of foreign insurance company, except insurance in premium, so it is a total premium collected is 4%. For foreign, for local, it is 2%. Owners of property obtaining insurance directly with foreign insurance, it is 5% of the premium. Property lease operator of the following cockpits, gross receipts is 18%. And then for cabarets, nightclub, and so, it is 10%. For boxing exhibition, it is again 10%. Professional basketball games is 15% of gross receipts. So, whichever nature and description, the high ally gross receipts is 30%. Winnings on horses is 10%. Winnings from double forecast or canilla and other infecta bets with 4%. Prices and of owners of winnings of race horses is 10%. So, if you are going to run out in percentage stock, the 3% is not fixed. So the percentage is based on the operations of the business. So this is true with our percentage tax, and our reference is Rex Banggawan, CPA MBA, Business and Transfer Taxation, Laws and Application 2019 edition, and we have some online resources. We have the BR .gov.ph, we have the tax HTML foreclosure, and we have the tax bliss, and we have some doing business organization. So more references is being used for taxation, especially those are for Philippine taxation. Thank you, and we go now to module 6, which is composed of community tax, penalties, remedies, and BIR forms. And you may answer the activity given below slides, given and a given or in a mode 2. Thank you very much.